Greetings and hello. If you're a saint, shalom to you. And I thank you for joining on this very critical broadcast. As promised earlier today, I have decided that the time is ripe for me to give redress to certain matters that are very important. Hence, I'm here. While you join, please let me know whether you can see and hear clearly. You may hear some background music, that is my neighbor. But please, I would love to know whether you can see and hear clearly. As long as you can hear me well enough, that's fine. Because this may help you to focus and pay attention to what is being said. Okay? Now, while we're progressing along through the broadcast, please let me know as well if there's any distortion or anything of that nature, so that we can seek to rectify that. Thank you. Please, if you do not mind, share the broadcast with someone, because they need to hear this, as I say to you always, from me. I welcome all of you, and I'm so grateful to those of you who've been following, who have been connected, who've been paying attention to that which has transpired in this country for the past few months, especially the month of August, since this draconian dictatorial order was passed that we're seeing is causing great concern and great grief to many people in this nation. Thank you for the feedback. I have been standing initially as an individual by the Mackenzie Market, as an individual who took a stance publicly for that which bothered me, being the order that I knew was going to cause great stress and great distress to my people. However, as a result of that, many things have blossomed and many things that have borne fruit. And here we are today, with my having cause to address certain people who I know are on a particular assignment that I would seek as best as I can to address with such clarity that they'll have very little to hold on to regarding what my life is about and what this fight is about. So I'm thankful to you. There are people who say that they do not receive notifications. Somebody just messaged me, actually made a comment on my page that they're not notified when I'm live for whatever reason. So please, if you do not mind, for their sake, invite them and share the broadcast with them. Now, just permit me and bear with me as I take you through why we are here. It will not be lengthy. As I began by saying that on the 1st, I think it is of August, somewhere around there, I stood in the market square in Linden because I had an issue with an order, a gazetted order. It is called an extraordinary gazette. And that order, signed onto by Frank Anthony, the Minister of Health, from looking at it, I knew there was an issue with the aspect of vaccination. And more than that, the aspect that spoke to citizens having to pay $25,000 for PCR tests at private labs that the government identified. Because I know that the government is not likely to identify a lab owned by any one of their political opponents or someone they may deem a crony of or a friend of their political opponent. I also had issue knowing that the average Guyanese, more than average, would have a difficulty, even those employed, would have a severe challenge with adhering to this $25,000 every 72 hours fee, I call it, just to have access to public facilities. Somebody's asking from YouTube. Yes, I am. I'm not live on YouTube at the moment, but it will be uploaded to YouTube. My YouTube channel is Nigel London TV. Somebody can type that, please, to help the person. You can find me at Nigel London TV. I also knew, and I said, that the military in this country were being treated in a manner that's unjust. since we were being removed from school. I was speaking to this a while before what I deemed to be mandatory vaccination was implemented. The soldiers of our country who represent our nation, who would fight for the sovereignty of this land, who served in many instances, these people were being withdrawn from schools, from the educational pursuits. They're being, in some instances, denied promotions. In some cases, they were told they have to leave, go home on vacation, on leave actually. And when they return, they'll know what happened, where they stand. That was unjust. I took a stance for the military of this country who couldn't stand for themselves at that time. I took a stance to the police officers in Guyana who I know were being told the same thing. They have to be vaccinated. Most of these are young men. So I was concerned because I recognized there would have been an issue. I stood for the nurses because I knew that our healthcare system is already undermanned, and it's already functioning throughout the pandemic, as they call it. It's functioning in a manner that really is under severe stress and strain. So I knew that from the moment they turned to our healthcare employees, we would have had a crisis on our hand, as you're seeing now at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation and across the country. I stood for teachers because I said the teachers were being used. I saw it. With Nicolette Henry, they were called out during the early phases of the pandemic to deal with National Grade 6 examination. Suddenly, COVID-19 took a break when politicians wanted to accomplish some goal. What happened? She issued a speech about performance and performance. When our children's lives were put at risk, teachers' lives were put at risk, auxiliary staff of these schools were put at risk, just to ensure that politicians get their way. And I'm speaking into what happened under APNU AFC. I spoke about that. I was passionately against it. When students from CSEC were made to go to school, still I had an issue with that. And I said the teachers are going to be severely used throughout this process, because I know how politicians function. In came the PPP Civic. What did they do differently? They continued along the same line. Teachers were used yet again to teach students at the grade 6 level, to teach CSEC examination classes, and then they were used to help to grade exams. Then the same people were used, some of them, with this because we care cash grant story. They were all along. COVID existed. COVID-19 was still around. SARS-CoV-2 was still around. Variants were still around. But persons began to, or teachers were used by these same politicians when there was nothing called vaccine card or vaccine ID. They were never told that they was going to come in, they will have to deal with this. But then again, Priya Manik-Chand, in one of the first meetings she had with parents via Zoom, said that in St. Vincent, teachers were being told that they would not be allowed to enter school unless they are vaccinated. And I said to people then, watch it. For as long as Priya Manik-Chand says that, she would have preempted certain things, and she knows exactly what will come down the pipeline. What has happened now? Are teachers not being told the same thing? But teachers continued to work through this because of their love for their children, their love for their profession. They continued along this line, and today we have a situation where teachers are told that they will only have access to schools unless they are vaccinated, and, or I should say, they pay $25,000 for a PCR test. Now, we sought, and I would have sought to engage via Facebook and other platforms. I sought to have the government reconsider that which is being done because it's detrimental to our people. I have made many, probably almost 100 by now, many posts, many videos, many live videos, so that I could have this matter addressed and that some degree of sense can be restored to this whole process. It was obvious that the government was taking an approach, and still is, that they correct or they fix as they go along. There is a case in which I am seeing clearly a mismanagement of the situation. to the detriment of the Guyanese population, to the detriment of the soundness of this population, the sound running, the smooth running of a population's business. We are seeing a haphazard approach. We are seeing a hypocritical approach in that, for example, people are gathering by the hundreds to collect money, by the thousands to collect money from the government, to collect house lots from the government. And COVID task force isn't stopping this. The COVID task force is not paying attention to this. But for small parties, people are being arrested. For house gatherings, some people are being arrested for underground parties, and I think they should be anyway. But when the government wants to do something, it is acceptable. That is hypocritical, and that doesn't point to there being an aggressive approach to dealing with COVID-19 pandemic. It speaks to there being hypocrisy on the part of the government, in which when it's their occasion, things are fine. COVID takes a day off apparently. But then when it comes to the business of the citizens, we are told that we have to meet certain strict demands or we do not have access to government services for which we pay. I was concerned and still am about that. Hence, I spoke to it publicly and made many efforts. I traveled to the city to stand at the Square of the Revolution, a symbolic environment, not a PNC environment. A symbolic environment, the term revolution itself, is a reminder to us of the strength of people, the courage of slaves, to resist that which they found to be unjust towards them. I was saying all along, from early up until the second week or so, that I have noted the absence of the leader of the opposition and any forceful or prominent or pronounced presence in this fight, because persons in Region 10 were being affected. I spoke about the fact that nurses in Region 10, and that's on record, that's a fact, irrefutable fact, nurses in Region 10 at the Linden Hospital Complex and other places were locked out, prevented from entering their place of work, and no other nurse in the country at the time, especially Georgetown or Babis, was treated in this manner. Frank Anthony said, and you heard me say it, that he didn't know that happened. Imagine that a hospital as large as Region 10's Linden Hospital Complex, they're saying that they didn't know that the nurses were outside while Georgetown and others were still inside. We had issues with these things. It escalated to a point where persons stood at the bridge saying they're not going to have the nurses outside while the gate is locked. Thankfully, the government rescinded, or Frank Anthony rescinded, and gave 2 weeks to those in the... We discovered finally it should not have been the case in the first place, but those in the public health sector and transportation sector. Now, they were given 2 weeks to comply. And I said that I have an issue with that language. But I was grateful for the sense that prevailed. Thereafter, there was a unity march held in Linden. All Region 10, all of Region 10 would have been represented. And that unity march was a march where we were united against what we knew to be mandatory vaccination. The government seeks to, and still seeks to say, that it is not mandatory. Even the president tries his best, makes a great effort with as much diplomacy that he can muster, which fails in any case, to say that it is not mandatory. Yet though, Guyanese are not permitted to enter places that their taxpayers' money sustain. If that is not wrong, I don't know what is. And they're told that the only way they can access these facilities is if they pay for this PCR test $25,000, which Frank Anthony and Leslie Ramsamy labeled as consequences for not taking a vaccine. Now, for as long as the government speaks to consequences for not doing something, that action is deemed mandatory. I don't know who advises the president of Guyana, but whoever advises the president of Guyana must understand that language is important. And if you say to citizenry that if they do not do what you tell them to do, there are consequences, then your action in itself is pointing to being mandatory in nature. And I continue to say that Guyanese are not stupid people. The majority of us are very brilliant people. And do not confuse academic qualifications with brilliance. The fact that Frank Anthony and Leslie Ramsamy said that persons must face consequences, it means therefore that you are saying, in essence, that your mandate or your vaccine policy is mandatory. There are many ways to force an individual into an action. And this government has done that regarding financial force. I have been calling repeatedly for nationwide. Remember I said that to you? When the 2 weeks were up, I said that across this nation, the 25th of August, I said across this nation, people should withdraw their services. Stay at home. Because the government must recognize that the people rule this country. The people are the authority in reference to who really has the power. Have I not been calling for that? I have said it, that the people of Guyana should, the public servants especially, if you're being forced into a manner in this, indirectly, and this is direct actually, if you're being compelled to do something that injures your finances and your financial well-being, you should stay at home. Have the courage, because I said to you that in 2 or 3 days, this government will never continue doing this to you. Somebody's asked if the broadcast is being interrupted. Is it? I don't know. So it's obvious that the public sector did not react initially. I was calling repeatedly for the unions to represent these people, to the union administration actually, because the workers are the union. Whoever pays union dues, you're part of the union. But those who represent you at the upper tier of leadership, I call on them to react to these measures that were painful, that were distressing, that were putting their the union subordinates under great duress. There was a call that this should not be. What happened? They did not. Now we have a situation in which Linden has decided at the leadership level, Region 10 has decided at the leadership level that they will go the route of shutting down for 12 hours on Monday, the 6th of September, the entire operation in the region. And persons are saying, and I observed Gordon Mosley's post, and with some comments that were made, including those disrespectful, derogatory, racist remarks from PPP supporters. Yet Irfan Ali speaks about national unity, and yet they're supposed to be entities that monitor behaviors of this nature. And on Gordon Mosley's page, remarks that were attacking residents of Region 10, and in some instances even ethnically charged remarks or insinuations were being made. But I'm here to address residents of this region who believe that shutting Region 10 down is not the good thing to do. And there are leaders in this town who do not seem to understand the power that resides in people in this region. So the notion is that Linden is going to lose money if the region is shut down for 12 hours. And that, George, some persons were saying that the other regions in Guyana will be functioning as per norm, and only Region 10 would be suffering. Now, that's the first thing that I need to address, because coming from certain leaders in this town, and of this town, and certain businessmen in this town, it is unfortunate that I've heard that from quite a few people. Let me begin with this. Those younger ones who have uttered those remarks, I can understand. More than likely, you've never been represented by a union. You've never understood the potency of industrial action when the employees take the action, which is why you function at such a loss. But I'll seek to help you if I can. If you understand anything about strike action, or what is called industrial actions, you would never say that Linden or Region 10 would suffer if people withhold their services and their money. Because the action in itself of individuals taking a protest stance, or a stance in protest to something that injures them or something that affects them, the action to withhold or withdraw your services and your money to keep it from the treasury for a day is in itself a loud enough statement. People who understand the power of people will never say that a united effort by people in Region 10 is going to hurt Region 10 alone. It means you do not understand how the systems of Guyana function. It's obvious that you do not. Region 10 is one of the most strategic regions in this nation. It is actually deemed one of the wealthy, the most resourceful in the region. We must understand that there are times when Guyanese have to stand to tell leadership across the board that we are displeased with your behavior and that your actions are affecting us. Here are some of the reasons why Region 10 should take a stance. Do you remember that 27 or so employees who were attached to the St. John's Ambulance Brigade were sent home? They lost their job. Now that this vaccination policy is in, and you have to pay $25,000 to receive or have to have access to government facilities. Tell me, please, those in this broadcast, how can these 27 people find $25,000 every 3 days to have access to government services? Does that make sense to you? Does that seem to be fair to you? Is it just in your eyes? Is that not cause enough for a community to say that we should stand with these people because they're being treated in a manner that's unjust? And I'll speak to what matters to you in a minute. What about those who've lost services, social services? What are they supposed to do? But since you want to arrive at this notion that if people should stay home and businesses should be closed on the 6th, it shall affect the economy of Linden, then you do not have an understanding of how the economy of Guyana functions. If people have the right to express themselves in a peaceful manner, which they've been doing, in a manner that was always seeking to have resolution in a sensible way that doesn't hurt anyone's economy. The minister could have simply said that he is going to take a look at this and realize that there are errors in it, there are flaws in it. For example, how could you say, as a minister of health, that one dose or one shot of a jab doesn't make you fully vaccinated, and that's why we lost our regional vice chairman, and then with the same breath say that people who have to access government facilities can just have one jab and they go to work, they don't have to be tested every day anymore? Does that make sense to you? Or every 3 days? It doesn't make any sense. And these things are going to affect the health of a community as well as persons' confidence in the decision makers. Region 10 has the right to express itself in a manner that causes the entire nation and probably some of the Caribbean to understand that this is not a game we're playing, that we are prepared as a people to stand united to make an announcement for 12 hours in a day that we shall not be treated as if we are unimportant and are of no value. Now let me go further. Permit me, please. To those of you who believe that all that matters to Region 10 is money, and those of you within Linden especially, who have this mentality that if you shut the region down for 12 hours, then money shall be lost. Something is seriously wrong with your reasoning. Because what you're telling me is that money in Region 10 matters more than the well-being of the people of Region 10. You are therefore an unfortunate soul who should not be trusted. So I see Olatunde James saying every goddamn thing is all politics and do for do. Well, I'll address you since you've made these comments. And hopefully you can receive them in the faith that you should. Hopefully. Politics means to govern. Olatunde James, politics means, the word politics in essence by definition means to govern. There are different forms of politics or means of which people govern, as a matter of fact. Monarchy, democracy, among others. Even anarchy, where people just do what they want. Now, for you to say that everything is politics, you need to understand, hopefully, that if a government makes a decision that affects people, then the people's response has to be one that is speaking to politics, because the decision was made by a government that affects people. Therefore, people are speaking to the manner in which the country is being governed. So everything about this pandemic has to be politics, because the decision that was made by politicians. And it was a political decision or a decision of governance that is affecting people. So what should we speak to Mr. and Mrs. James, or Ms. James? What? Say to us what we should address. If it's a political decision that's affecting people, what should people speak about? Now further to that, and I can see hopefully where you're headed with this. Anil Nandalal, for example, first he was Ralph Ramkaran, began to suggest, and they're still saying, that all of this action is about politics or political parties being APNA, FC, PNC, wherever it is. Now let me help you all to understand something here. It shows how shallow this nation is and certain politicians in this nation are. Because this began with me taking a public stance, an independent thinker, an individual man. Listen to me. An individual stood by the market square. I went live on Facebook and said I'm taking a stance here for those who can't stand for themselves. And I'm taking a stance because I'm against what the government is doing. I stood. And the best narrative that Anil Nandalal and Ralph Ramkaran could arrive at is that this is all about PNC, APNU AFC, and whatever else it is. It shows you, therefore, again I say how shallow our political leaders are. Because if all that they could wrap their mind around is that every action of a citizen is governed by a political party, either PPP Civic or APNU or AFC, the APNU Coalition, APNU AFC, you are certainly out of touch with reality in your own country. Because within Guyana there are people, and I should be known as one of them because I've done many live broadcasts, to prove that I have nothing to do with political affiliations. I have said it on many public interviews, radio interviews, television interviews, and still some of you are too shallow to understand it. Why does this have to be that the PNC is causing this when I stood as an individual? This is not about PNC or APNU AFC. This is about me and other people who understood that we were being injured by the government's behavior. And we have the right to take a stance. Whether PPP Civic want to label us as APNU or PNC, I could not care less. I will continue to take a stance. And if, by any means, there are members, as you saw, of the APNU AFC coalition who are standing in my company, I commend them for doing so. And if they've taken a decision that they shall intensify the action to show that they are against mandatory vaccinations, I commend them for doing so. And I invite anyone from PPP Civic to do the same. What Anil Nandalal and Ralph Francoran seem to have missed is this, that if the notion is that everything that happens is politically driven, then the 10 neophyte parties or so they had, ANOG and TCI and all of them, they're obviously then tentacles of the PPP Civic, if you want to reason along that line. Since there are only two parties that could make things move in Guyana, then it has to be obvious that whatever happened to us politically is coming from PPP Civic and tentacles of theirs. Because Ralph Francoran was supposed to be part of a new United Guyana, and he wrote a piece in everybody who's against vaccines or saying my body, my choice, are in essence being influenced by PNC or APNU AFC. So where's your reasoning? But let me proceed. Lyndon, if ever people among you remotely suggest that one day's wage or one day's earning is too much to sacrifice to stand for those among your community who are being downtrodden and who have the PPP try to put their foot on these people's necks financially. The students at the Charles Rose School of Nursing, some of them in the first year received nothing, not a penny. And they're told, without having any stipend from the government at this time, until after 6 months of being in the school, that they must find $25,000 every 72 hours in Region 10 to pay for a PCR test at a private lab to get into school. If you cannot, as a Region 10 resident, see that this is bordering, or it actually is, a direct trampling on humanity, a direct result or a direct action of stomping on the backs of people who are already economically challenged, then you do not deserve to be in Region 10. You should not be numbered among us. We have a right to stand for these Charles Rose School of Nursing individuals, the others who are fired from the ambulatory services. You must stand for what is right. And if your reasoning in Region 10 and in Lyndon is that shutting the town down for 12 hours will benefit no one, you are lost regarding the action that people take as a unit. Why are we supposed to sit back and allow our young ladies and young men who are trying to attain an education in nursing, why should we sit back and allow them to be treated with such injustice? Why should we do that? Region 10 shall be respected, or we shall withhold our services and our money. It's that simple. Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten that with the George Floyd situation, persons did not go to work? Persons shut down cities. In some cases, internationally, shut down cities for days in protest. Have you forgotten? Did you say it didn't make any sense? Or only US citizens' lives matter? Do Guyanese matter? When persons in Port Moran drove cars to block door because they weren't getting money, and persons couldn't get about their daily business, money was lost because time is money. Did it matter? Who caused that? Was it Apneus who made PP supporters stand in the middle of the road and block the road? There has to be a cause, because a cause generates a response. There are individuals who are being told that they are not going to have a salary unless they do what the government says. So some persons are of the view that there should be more extreme actions being taken. But I say to you again that if you venture into taking more extreme action, are you prepared to face extreme reactions? Because what I would take my time to do this evening, if I can, is to help you to understand the nature of a fight. Whenever you seek, there's a government in place who obviously is telling you that their way has to work or nothing else will work. Whenever you have a government that will have the police force supporting them or reacting to their instructions, as is the case here, because everybody in Guyana wants to protect their job apparently, and the military wants to protect their job too. When you see the government that would have the power to instruct police officers to act, and you have people who do not have a militia arm among them, when you have these two faces meeting, entities meeting, you must always figure out how to deal with it. If the government on one hand has the support of the police force, or they have access to the police force, you cannot instruct police to do anything. When you've got a situation in which the military will take instructions from government leaders as well, and you have a community or people who do not have a militia on their own. We don't have any rebel warriors in Guyana fighting as any official opposition. Whenever you take an action, you must understand that there's going to be a reaction from another group. And you must be prepared to have an action that is stronger than that reaction. And that is how things escalate over time. Now, some of you are speaking with much passion and much rage, but very little wisdom. Because you seem to figure out that you could attack a system by yourself. It should be, by the way. You should stand there and say again, you who want to say these things about blocking a bridge off, you stand alone. Put some barricades by the bridge and stand by yourself to show that you are strong enough to do it on your own. If you are incapable of standing by yourself, if everybody wants to leave you, then you're not prepared to stand anywhere. I have alluded to this fact, that a strong warrior is one who can stand by himself to the death when it's all over. If you need a crowd to stand with you, you're not prepared for any fight. Region 10 has the power to make economic statements, to make statements that involve our labor, our services. Understand this. Region 10 has got power to make statements regarding our services. If you have got the police force and the army defecting and say we're coming on the side of the people, as happening in many other countries, and we're going to stand with the people against the government, that's a different story altogether. Because now you've got military support and you've got support from the law enforcement officers, so you're now protected from instructions from the government. Guyana is not there yet. We don't know if we get there. But if we're not there, we cannot have a situation in which persons are not as armed or as strong as an armed unit, saying you just stand in front of their face to do what? Are you suicidal? When there are other ways that you can win this battle, which include withholding your services. Let me give you some perspective. Why do you think that last week the Minister of Education was saying, and I heard her plainly, she changed a lot over the few days. She said, we can't afford any online teaching. People have to go to school. School must be reopened. Things have to happen. Teachers have to go to school. And students must return to school. Priya had a lot of things to say when her officers were beside her in Brick Dam. But when GTU said, when the Guyana Teachers Union said, you're not going to force any teacher to take any vaccine, we shall strike. Immediately Priya Chan said, teachers, that she knows the value of teachers. She understands that if teachers decide to stay home or they stay on strike, what will happen? She cannot deny or deplete or dilute the worth of teachers. Of course she didn't use those words, I'm just paraphrasing it. She cannot lessen the value of teachers. Therefore, she hopes teachers come within themselves. Listen to this now. Consider what you swore to. I didn't know teachers who swear to get a job in the first place. But consider what you swore to do, teachers. Consider what your profession entails. Consider how much the children mean to you. You know what she's doing? She's trying her best to get people to say, okay then, we're not going to strike. Because she understands that 50,000+ high school students alone stand to be affected. She understands that over maybe 40,000 nursery and primary school children stand to be affected. And parents by extension, because they have to have arrangements to keep the children home. That shows you that without firing one bullet, the Guyana Teachers Union has the Education Ministry on the back foot, has the government on the back foot, just from taking a simple stance. If you want to tell us that we have to be vaccinated, we're not going to school. And if you lock one teacher out of the gate, we shall strike across the nation. That is what I'm telling you. That is where power lies in your services. If you understand the value of yourself in reference to what you have to offer, people will never walk over you like that. Now, with every individual having that understanding and every teacher uniting with that understanding, then the country goes forward with power on our side. Because the teachers are not saying they're against those of us who saying it's our body and we have right to choose what goes into it. Teachers are saying they support this. We must be willing to pause and understand the nature of war. You are not in the playground pitching marbles and jumping rope. You are in a war. And if you are in a war, strategy is everything. Emotions are nothing. If you are in a fight of this nature, strategy is everything. Emotions are worthless. And if you make emotional decisions, your strategies go out the window. The people have the power in this situation because the people are standing for the police officers. The people are standing for the army who were injured by this decision, but they haven't acted. They've exercised much restraint. But the people understand that if we stand on the side of the police would not seek to fight us. The people should not create a situation where our police officers are put on the spot, where they're looking at those of us who are fighting for them, and they still have to come with a gun to say, move or I'll shoot you. Where is your strategy? For how long can you last in this battle for your human rights? And somebody still, Olutoni still believes, and I would not focus on it any longer, that the people will lose nothing. Again, you do not understand governance. The people will always lose if teachers across the nation should strike and children in their regions and their strongholds do not get to go to school. You need to understand strategy here, sir. If teachers strike in this country, the people shall be severely affected. That's why they're asking for it to not happen. If nurses and doctors go on strike, it gets worse. Because you need to understand international power here. There are eyes that are following, somebody said, even what I'm doing here. In other countries, people are paying attention because they're hearing a similarity, that their voice is rising saying, we are not going to have persons step on us. You need to understand that teachers' action will affect the nation. Hence, Priya Manichan taken to soften the situation and appeal to their good nature, because she understands the power that resides in just one union. If all of the public service union decides now, listen, we are going to call our workers off the job, the country shall be shut down in general. You still saying PP wouldn't suffer? You speaking to PP as a party or as a government? Because there's a difference. As a party, they wouldn't suffer now. But if their constituents are suffering, listen to me, they will suffer. If the GTU, the Guyana Teachers Union, calls a strike, I promise you that the government shall suffer. Because they can't import thousands of teachers as they did 52 doctors to work at the COVID center in Liliendal, at the infectious disease center. They do not have the luxury of importing teachers to Guyana now by the thousands. So do not tell me the people will not suffer. I have worked at a supervisory level in the Ministry of Education with the World Bank project. And I could tell you that teachers are among, and I said this to you all in many broadcasts, teachers, nurses, these two brackets, I told you all, they are about the most potent in reference to power in this country. That's why you don't fool around with them, because they are extremely valuable to the smooth running of society. Public servants in general. Now, because some of you are not au fait with systems, you make certain statements that I can understand. They come from a place of your lacking experience. But never perceive that teachers and nurses and doctors are to be taken ordinarily. And if you add police force to it and the military, this country is finished. In reference to politicians thinking they can rule us and do what they want. So Region 10 stands as a beacon of strength in the hope, or probably with the expectation, that another region may recognize that it's possible for a people to stand against a system that is injuring them. Let us understand this. Region 10 is where I stood to announce my issue as an independent thinker. People do not think for me. And in standing in Region 10, other persons came and began to stood with me, not for me. And as a result of that, we went to Georgetown as well. And we began to see across the nation. Kokwani, I see the teachers in New Amsterdam are out. Bartika, Lethem. People began to take to the streets because they recognize that there are other people around with the same mind who are prepared to say they are against a certain behavior. That is the potency of people understanding their power. That's the value of people understanding their power and the potency of the people. We are powerful as people. But your politicians, or your political leaders, I should say, not all politicians, from both parties, have crushed my people to the extent where you've lost an understanding of who you really are. You believe that you live by handouts and that you cannot survive unless some political ruler has a foot on your back. All I've been doing, and all I sit here to do tonight, is to have my people understand that you must return to understanding the power you have. Young men, stop speaking as if you're so weak that you can't stand for yourself. This is unhealthy for you as young men. Arise with courage. The inconvenience of not earning for one day is too much for you all to bear, and you call yourself warriors? How can you be willing to fight but you can't lose salary, a wage, not even a salary, a day's pay? How can you say you're willing to fight a war but you can't live without money for one day? The tide in Guyana has to turn, and it has to turn to the people. It must turn to the people, to us, having the authority. Politicians serve us. For decades in this country, you are made to think that you serve politicians because they come in their glory and they come in their splendor. Leaders I'm talking about here. And you bow to some minister. This has to stop. I am sitting here as an individual who understands that my people have suffered. And this is your moment to say that you're not going to take bullying. And you are telling me. See, somebody said a cousin died from taking Moderna. You see that? Do you see that? And you do not see a cause? You do not see a reason to tell the government, stop. This is the time for men in this country to represent your families, represent your sister, represent your cousin, represent your niece. Be men. How could you have grown men talking about Lyndon would suffer because he won't have money? For one day? I can submit to you that politicians in government know fully well what can happen in Region 10 if we shut this down for 12 hours. I promise you that. Because regions are interconnected. Region 10 is strategic. Region 10 contributes to the treasury. Region 10 contributes to this economy. We deserve to be treated as though we are contributors. We have to be respected. And if you do not understand, whenever you purchase an item, I say again, that has VAT attached to it, value-added tax, you're a taxpayer. You don't have to be employed to be a taxpayer. And because you pay your taxes through purchasing items, you should withhold your money. Because it's a sign of protest that you are not going to have this happen to you. We are not going to allow anyone to be this disrespectful to our youth. For me, it increased in the cause being valuable when I saw young ladies standing in the sun, locked out of Charles Russell School of Nursing because they're not vaccinated, and they must find $25,000 every 3 days when the government only gives some of them $17,000 per month. If you cannot see a cause, something is wrong with you. But I'm saying to us as a people, we have to intensify with strategy. Strategy is everything. Focus matters. Georgetown, you're free. Region 4, you're totally free to do the same thing. Region 5, Region 6, Region 3, Region 9, any other region in the country, you can take the same approach because all of you are being affected by this behavior. Which is why the politicians are now trying to posit from the PPP side that this is political. Because they understand that if they say it's political and it's about APNU and AFC, then their supporters will likely say, well, I'm not going to be a part of this because it's political. I do not associate with or have affiliation to APNU AFC or PP Civic or any political party in this country. I am a man with my family and with my nation's well-being at heart. I don't need politics to stand or some political party, but I'm saying to APNU AFC, and I'm grateful that some of them are stepping up to the plate, that they have been elected in Region 10 overwhelmingly. Therefore, they have a right to represent their people, councillors and otherwise. You were elected in an overwhelming manner in this region. And it is only fair for you to stand for your people who voted for you. Now, in that process, while APNU AFC is standing for their people, and I stand among the people, the best that Anil Nadalan and others can arrive at is that I'm APNU too. Well, then say it. I do not care. Because what happened to some of you is that what is important is how people perceive you more than how you see yourself. If you want to label me as APNU or AFC, I've been called PPP, I've been called everything. It really doesn't matter to me because it exposes the weakness of the mind of many people. Even in Linden, where your view is that the only stance a man can take is a political one. I have spoken to the fact that if it's called a vaccine, it must work like a vaccine. I've spoken to the fact that if you have to wear a mask after you're fully vaccinated, it means the vaccine doesn't work. And what is worse is when the president says that I'm unvaccinated and they must be protected from me, though they're fully vaccinated. How does that make sense to you all? How does it make scientific sense to you? We are going to stand as a region. And I am standing with leadership in this region because they're doing the right thing. They're saying that we're not going to allow people to walk all over them. And this is not going to happen. Linden will lose money. Linden has lost respect from the government. Have you understood that? You were talking about money. Region 10 has lost respect. Because you treat it as if, with the nurses, you lock them out and left everybody else in their hospitals. We treat them with disregard. And this is the hour whereby we're saying that we had enough of this. As a region, we've had enough of it. Including PPP supporters in the region. Because some of you don't know that. Do not reduce this to some political issue. That's what the PPP is trying to do, and I'm not going to allow it. This is not some political party taking a stance. These are people of my region saying we've had enough of this. And I will stand with them. If if a PP Civic supporter or a member of parliament comes today, or a minister in the government comes to Linden and say, listen, I understand you're struggling, I stand with you, I stand with him too, or her. Because it's not politics here. You could call me PP if you want after that, but I stand with them. You are not going to think for me. Are you not make it appear as if I don't have the right to stand beside a politician in this country who understands my cause? That is nonsense. This is not about some political party here. I have the right to think for me and for my house. I represent my family. And we are going to take a stance. I will take a stance for them. When you see me, you see them. And my position is clear. Any political leader who understands my issue and represents my issue, I am going to stand with you. Because it takes a fool to fight against someone who's fighting for them. Which brings me to the most, I think for some of y'all, salient point and matter here. But before I get to that, let me speak a little further to what Linden stands to benefit from this. Region 10 as a whole stands to benefit because the government shall understand. The government shall understand that if 40,000+ people can represent themselves for a cause, you're talking about seats in parliament here. Don't let politicians set you up with foolishness. The government can understand. That's why they're trying their best to make this politics and not people. But whenever they try to do it, I'll bring you back to focus. This is people's issue here. This is not APNO issue. This is people having a problem. These are people having an issue and we have to fight. Because our rights are being stepped on. So let me bring to your attention the other accusation being raised, which is that, as some people have said, I'm using this as a means for political gain. Now buckle up, because it's about to be turbulent. Quite a few persons have said that, but not quite a few, a very minimal number, a minuscule number of shallow-minded people, because an individual is most likely to think about you the way they think about themselves, generally speaking, and what they see themselves being capable of doing. So certain men in our society have formulated a strategy to try to turn persons away from following, in their view, what I'm doing. And in the effort, like Nandlal and others, they've arrived at saying that all of this that I'm standing for has an end, which is politics, or my entering into politics. Now let me help you all who are shallow enough to repeat that. I'll try my best to do so. Although I guess it'll be futile, but I'll still try. Listen to me, please. We are in 2021, according to Pope Gregory's calendar. Irfan Ali got into office after Granger left on the 2nd of August, 2020. You mean to tell me that elections will come till 2025 and you're already concerned about Nigel London? It makes sense to you. You have 3 years, 4 years left for elections, and you already have an issue and a concern that I'm thinking of a political office. Is it that much obvious to you that your position is so shaky that you have to start from 2021 to launch missiles at Nigel London, as a candidate tried to do? Imagine 2021, a candidate tried to say that I stole my mother money from the bank. You start a smear campaign from now, just to make me rich, by the way. Just to add to my pocket. Imagine that in 2021, you already start mudslinging at me. Now, I want those of you who are understanding this to laugh, to find something to laugh for, because we go through a whole lot. We've been under stress for a long time. But this right here took the cake for me. In 2021, elections till 2025, and you already have people on the street trying to spill mud and say, don't listen to Nigel London, he just wanted to go to politics. He just want to become president. In 2021, you're doing that? So what will happen to you all in 2024 then if I say I'm going to do this? It's, now it may sound strange to some of you, but what I do is, and let me tell people I'll try to help them, even if it hurts me. So I'll try to help you. Listen to me. There's no way, if you have senseless politicians, you will go down this road. Because if you make me the focus, you're losing voters. Because you're telling voters that in 2021, somebody's not even in parliament is a problem for you. Look at where I am. I don't receive a parliamentary salary. I don't receive duty-free concession to sit in parliament. I'm not a minister in government. I'm not a member of the opposition. I'm me. And in 2021, you have an issue that I want to be in government. What you fail to realize is that when I stood by the Mackenzie market, I never said anything about politics, never. And those who are close to me know how I feel about dealing with political matters, because I always want to be most distant from it. But I realized something, that my people and I'll test some of you, tell the truth please. Tell the truth please, please. How many of you have not heard or said that politics is a dirty game? Have you ever heard that? And politicians are liars? Who's ever heard that or said that? Politics is a dirty game, and you must not deal with politics. Who's ever heard that statement or said it? And that politicians are liars and thieves. Have you ever heard that statement? Okay, my baby say yes. Good. Now let me help you to understand what's happening here. The fact that the defined term in the dictionary of politics means to govern. But Guyanese people, and many people across the world, can only redefine it to mean that it's a dirty game and you're a liar. It tells you how much politicians have failed you. Because politics simply means to govern, to lead. That's all it means. But can you imagine that politicians have performed so poorly over the years that you in Guyana have redefined it to mean that it's a game of tricks. Some of you call it politics. Imagine that you call it politics. Politics is not a game. It's a system of, it means to govern. How do you govern people? How do you lead? So we as a people must redefine in the right way what it means to be involved in politics. You are a leader. But the way that our politicians in many instances, not all of them, many of them, have governed, you see this as a game. Because they enter into this, some of them at a level of poverty. And I've seen it within 2 years. They're living in mansions. That is what's dirty. When politicians could call their friends up and give their friend a contract, and the road can't last for 2 weeks, that's wicked. And they have to answer for it. You have got roads in Guyana that are being repaired every 6 months for multi-million dollars. And nobody's being held accountable for it because somebody gets a cutback. Politics is not a dirty game. People involved in it are dirty people because the defined word must stand for itself. It simply means to govern. If my people are being treated as if they are nothing but numbers, according to what politicians were telling you all during election time. Excuse me. Count the ticks. Count the X. That's all you are. Numbers. If that's what you've been reduced to, and somebody comes on the scene to say, listen, you're worth more than this. You need to be respected. How is that individual a threat to you, the people? How? If somebody says to you that the way this country is being led, and you're seeing it yourself because you have a circle of agreement, these people don't care about us. They have the nerve to sit and watch patients die in a hospital just to make a point. And I have not seen Harman come to the street yet to say that people are in a hospital without care. Nurses and doctors are locked out of the gate. I have not seen a numerical presence from the opposition that speaks to them being serious, and some of them are present in the region. I'm thankful for those members of the opposition, Region 10, who are standing with us as a people. But I'm speaking on a national scale. Region 10 is represented heavily. Where are your numbers to show that your disapproval? Where is your leader of your party, of your coalition? How could you try to reduce my stance to a political one in 2021? It shows a shallowness of thought. That the only person who would stand for your right as an individual is somebody who has political ambitions. But even if they do, is it still not for your benefit? Who is standing for you? Who was standing for you all from the beginning? And I'm saying this for a reason for you to understand me. If an individual says that you're not being represented, I shall represent you, how is that person your enemy? How can that individual who stands for you be an enemy of yours? Worthy of being disparaged, worthy of being disrespected. How? Some of you saying this, have family members who can't afford $25,000 every 3 days. And I'm saying it's wrong. They should be free of this burden. And you're saying that the person shouldn't listen to London because London wants to be in politics? Let me make it clear for you. And I'll do this maybe once in a very long time. I have said it on enough occasions for you to hear me as clearly as you should hear me. The very first day that police officers, not officers, but one police rank, senior rank, had the nerve to tell me that I cannot stand on the street by the market and speak to taxi drivers across the road, or I'll be considered to be disturbing the peace. That, I told you, was the limit for me. That nobody, for as long as I have a chance, that would never happen to another Guyanese. Not if I know it. Hear me clearly. The fact that I stood in my country of birth, in my town of my birth, and was told by a police officer of senior rank that I cannot tell my people across the street about something that the government wants to do, or that's called disturbing the peace, that to me was the limit. Because if I did not know my right as a Guyanese, he would have trampled on it. And I said it then, and I will say it again, that if I have to stand in the House of Assembly or any seat of authority in this country to represent my people, so shall it be. Because I'm giving people a chance to represent you and represent me in a manner that's wholesome. When you have a situation in which political leaders in this country could see men dressing as women as being more important to discuss in Parliament than nurses being locked out of a hospital, that gives me cause to represent my people. Because my son can have a teacher who's dressed as a man today and tomorrow come dressed like a woman. And politicians didn't see that nurses being locked out of a hospital as being important, Manzuna Deer and those. What was of critical importance to them was discussing man dressing like woman. And you do not see a cause? Label me as what you want to label me, is my point. But I shall always stand for the right of my people. However, if a group of individuals says we have seen in an individual somebody who could lead us, who could represent us, who could stand for our cause or for our right, and we want this person to represent us at whatever forum, and they ask me to represent them, for as long as you're not asking me to represent sodomy and man dressing like woman, we could have a conversation. I'm not going to stand and say, oh, I have formed a political party. I'm not the kind of person. Don't look for that for me. Don't look for me to stand and tell you I am forming something and you have to join me. I don't do that nonsense. But if my people decide that they need me to represent them at a certain forum, and I see that it's a just cause, I shall stand for my people. Because I've been injured enough by just nonsense in political circles. You don't seem to see what's down the road for y'all. You don't seem to see that I'm saying to you that the fact that my Guyanese brothers and sisters could be denied the right to eat food in their house over vaccine, that's not cause enough for me to stand for y'all. Are you serious? When your pastor standing out from the pulpit, take the vaccine. These same preachers who told you all this I had to say are quiet. While you're losing your job, while you're being sent home, while you're being treated like a child, you're being locked out of the gate. And you have someone who is prepared to stand and defend your interest. That's a problem. Let me make it clearer for you. In the church circle, even if I sit in the seat of a president because I'm an apostle of the Lord Yeshua, I've been demoted in the natural arena. It's not a promotion. The highest service I can give is to the church in reference to preaching the gospel of my Messiah. That's the highest service I can give to humanity. Teaching you the truth. Bringing you aware of what is fake spiritually. Opening your eyes to see the wickedness behind certain behaviors. Like this one right here. You do not see the depth of wickedness globally that surrounds this behavior. To look at people and deny them the right to eat food over a vaccine that cannot protect them from being infected. You can't see how evil this is? To send a father home? Do you not see the wickedness behind this? To make young children girls stand in the sun because they're not doing what you want? To send home workers by the thousands and then tell the same people they have to find $25,000 every 3 days? You do not see how evil this is? And then at the same time to say that if you die of a vaccine, nobody's held accountable because the manufacturers, the developers are immune to prosecution, and you do not see how evil this is? The highest service I can give to humanity is telling them the truth. If I sit as a president, prime minister, parliamentarian, whatever you call me, that's a demotion. That's not a promotion. Hence, political power doesn't attract me. But I understand the value of standing in reference to people's protection, their human rights. And I will not take that for granted. I will speak for my people. As I told Mr. Benchtrop, call me what you want. If you say to me that because I stand for Guyanese people and politicians, then so be it. You could call me what you want. At the end of the day, I'm standing for my people's well-being. That is not going to change. That shall not change. I advise you all, please, you have years ahead of you to worry about Nigel London's position. Don't do that to yourselves. You can't start from now. I say again, do not hurt yourselves like this. Do not do this to yourselves. You got till 2025 to think about this. You have until then. You shouldn't make me the focus now. Is it that you're seeing that the people have begun to recognize what representation looks like and you're nervous about it? What's the concern? What's the fear? And do not believe that I shall be distracted by any more of this. Some things I give attention to, other things I make mention of and move on. This is not going to get my attention. I have made mention of it and I'm moving on to what matters to me, which is that this order that is affecting my people and me must cease to exist. Or it must be amended to what is fair and just for my people. So you could, some of you who are in this vein, could continue to swallow all you want, say as much as you choose to say about that which you think lies ahead for me. I shall not devote my attention to it. I am giving attention to what matters. And what matters to me is the well-being of my people and my well-being, in that I am not going to be treated as if I'm a fool, where you say to me it's not mandatory, but I have to pay $25,000 to access government services. I'm not accepting that. With that, I encourage you to see the benefit of a region standing united as opposed to a nation standing in fear. You could assess the difference. You could see the benefit of a region standing united for a cause, as opposed to a nation standing in fear and just bowing. If you cannot see the benefit of a people standing for a cause, it's difficult for me to help you. It's difficult for me to relate to you, because I prefer to make an effort to stand, at least to stand. As small as you may think it is, the impact is far more significant. We, as a people of this nation, shall remember the injustices that we've suffered, and we have a right to make a decision about it. We as a people have the right to be heard and to be respected. If those things are not happening, we have the right to do something about it. We as a people have the right to access services that our taxpayers' money, it is being withdrawn to support and to sustain. We have a right. Or please stop taking taxes out of our money. You should not be withdrawing taxes from people's money if they're unvaccinated and they can't have services. We have a right. Have you not said in many cases that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step? What happened to that? Why can't you take one step in Region 10? Have you not said that in order to eat an elephant, you do it one bite at a time? What happened to all these proverbs and stuff that you have? Are they gone out the window now? Don't you say in Guyanese associate vernacular, one dirty build dam, a little mud at a time would build a whole dam? What happened to these forms of reasoning among you all? Have they vanished? Let Region 10 take its baby step, if that's how you see it. But the government knows how magnanimous a step it is, how huge a step it is, how significant a step it is if an entire region can decide, which is why I'm telling you that they have agents that are active, as I saw today, very active. As would have come across certain comments on Gordon Mosley, they're very active in trying to discourage this because they understand. You maybe don't understand, some of you, but they understand this, the impact of one entire administrative region taking a stance. You don't have to understand. And I close by speaking to the likes of one who just came as well. I'm very, very amazed that men who should be grown men devoting so much time to following me so closely, to pay attention to the most minuscule thing that I say, hoping to find something wrong with it. If I didn't know some of you, and sadly I don't know most of you, hence my only thought is that you are sadly a male who's obsessed by me, or with me, or about me, which is unfortunate. The fact that you can devote so much of your life as a man to pay such careful attention, like the one who came and talked about what politics mean when politics actually means to govern, and tries best to find some other meaning that it means power. That shows you how sick you are, that you can devote your life. Listen to me, man. As handsome as I am, I can't stand being around a creature who's a male being so obsessed with me. It makes me uncomfortable. Be obsessed over some woman. Quit paying such careful attention to me. It is disgusting to see grown men spending your days and your time hopefully trying to find one thing wrong with what Nigel has to say. Stop it. Grow up. Leave that for the ladies. Women could admire me, whatever. Yeah, right. But you guys don't do that. You men should not be doing that. Do not devote your time to finding one little thing that I said is wrong that you can hold on to, when it's actually not wrong. It just shows how shallow you are and obsessed you are. Get over it. So I'm asking you to find something else to do. Do not devote your time. Because you're making me feel you're a sodomite now. Because there's no way that you could be looking at a man so all the time. And more than that, you hiding in the background, then you pop with some comment when you think I say something wrong. Grow up, man. Come on. There's too much happening in this nation and the world for you to devote your life to me. Is it that your life only has meaning when you can think you find something wrong with what I've said? Do I live, or does my existence or your existence depend on what I say? Honestly, is that the best you can do? You breathe just to find something wrong with what was being said here? And you failing miserably? There is too much at stake in this nation for you to devote yourself to being obsessed with a man who despises sodomites. I think somebody found the person's name before I bid you all good night. Let me see the person found him. Oh, you didn't find him. Get over it. I do not involve myself in such nonsense. I will stand for my people. You are insignificant, and at this moment you are actually of absolutely no interest to me. I shall continue to stand for my people. I give attention to certain things and I make mention of certain things. Once I make mention of it, it's time to move on. I'm finished with you. You become non-existent. My energy shall be spent on what matters, which is the well-being of my people. To those of you who devote yourself to finding some fault with what is said, thank you. You keep me sharp. But lose the obsession, please. With that said, I thank you for the time we spent, and I hope that you in Region 10 understand the cause. I hope that you're familiar with what matters most, which is people, not money. And we shall continue to stand for the benefit of our people, not money. I appreciate your understanding that if people wish to label me a politician, so be it. It doesn't matter to me, and it shouldn't matter to you either. I shall serve my people because saints will benefit from my actions, and I serve them. Thank you, and do well. Remember that the mismanagement of this COVID-19 situation in Guyana has led to this that we're seeing today. Persons are gathering in massive numbers to have vaccines or injections. Cash grants, well, they finished. Now it's vaccine crowd gathering. It's just nonsensical. People have one dose and they're not being tested. They're free to go wherever they want and they're not tested anymore. Person with 2 doses are not tested, though they can be infected and spread the virus still. It's being mismanaged significantly. I'm asking you, please, focus on your well-being. Eat in a healthy way. Boost your immune system. If you want to be vaccinated, go right ahead. It's your choice. But still understand that you should take care of yourself and you should be safe. There is a serious issue at hand that we must deal with. And we should not allow the weak ones to suffer because of our irresponsibility. I bid you shalom, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Yahweh willing. Goodbye and do well. Thank you so much, Mommy. I appreciate that. And my 70+ year mother can type. That's significant to me. But I appreciate you all. Thank you. Thank you so much. And for those who are saying all that you have to say, let me just say this while I'm looking at my mother's comments and stuff. The main person in this equation is my father, or the people and my family. As long as you see they understand my position, all other opinions do not matter. And my family is well aware. They're well aware of my position. And my father has certainly given me all of the blessing that I need to serve my people. And that is what it shall be. Thank you. Bye-bye.